So this is going to be my last one, which is going to be the private well and septic. Private well and septic, if you do need it for those rare occasions, it kind of has two parts to it, right? And each part has parts to it as well. So the first part really is the well. You have the well potability test, which is actually the well water. Me, like I said earlier, I'm a control freak. So on here, I normally select the buyer is going to pay for that test. So we would have that test taken, and you can either do it yourself or you can have a lab come out and do the test. But either way, a lot of times I'll do it. They give you guidelines. You go pick up the test kit over at the lab. There's general instructions on how to do it. You go do it, and it's over with. The second part of it is the actual well inspection, which is a lot more expensive. So you can do them in combination. A lot of companies will do a potability test and a well inspection if that's the route you're going to go. But you want to set those parameters up in regards to a lot of this stuff is the same as the home inspection. So it is or is not contingent on a well inspection, and however many days you're going to do that test from ratification. You may need more time on these inspections or these contingencies because depending on the time of the year, your vendors could be very busy. So I would say somewhere between 14 and 17 days on these for both this and your septic. But so say you're going to do a 14-day period. This outlines they're going to come out and they're going to inspect the well. Then you have a right to negotiate through that process just like you do a home inspection, and you provide the same type of addendum that you would for the home inspection in order to negotiate through your well and well water contingencies. Your septic is the same as well. If you have the alternative system up top, which are there are some, but a few. And then you have the regular septic inspection contingency. Whether or not it is contingent or not, I would say at least 17 days. And here it's always whether the buyer's going to pay for it or the seller's going to pay for it. It's normally an expensive proposition, somewhere between $450 and $600 for this inspection. So a lot of people like to have the seller pay for it. So if that's what you want to do, you do. And then you put in the company that you're going to have do it. And also in there, you have to put in the days. So if you're having the seller do it, I'm just going to hone in on paragraph 2 here of the septic inspection. If the option for the seller is checked above, the seller shall have conducted the septic inspection no sooner than the date of the ratification date. The seller shall deliver the inspection report to the buyer no less than X amount of days prior to the septic inspection deadline. So if you have a 17-day inspection for the deadline for the septic, you're going to want that thing at least 3 days prior to the deadline, right? So you can review it, and if you're going to put any repairs in there, get that addendum back to the seller. So I would give yourself at least 3 days. In the event the seller does not deliver the septic report, the buyer may, prior to the septic deadline, order a septic inspection on behalf of the seller, and the seller's sole risk of damage, and the septic inspection deadline will be extended for an additional, if you're waiting, if you get 3 days before the end of your contingency, you're going to want a substantial amount of days, right? Because if it takes you 2 weeks to get a septic out there, so you're going to want to extend that contingency out, right? So, or you can deliver notice voiding the contract, or pursue legal equity or remedies. So, but if you're doing it for the buyer, you normally just do it and get it done. Then you have to check the appropriate boxes for whatever you want to do. They do a conventional overlook of the visual inspection, probing of the field. Plus I would recommend you always check these other boxes: pumping and inspection of all treatment tanks, evacuation of necessary to visually inspect the distribution box. I think every inspection I've ever done for septic has always had a problem with the distribution boxes, so I would recommend you always do those too. Then, of course, you have, if you're going to void, you can either send over a copy of the report and a notice to void, or you can send over a copy of the report and whatever list of demands that you have in regards to your buyer. Now remember, whatever they are, you should have whatever the discrepancy is, and you should note what your recommended repair is. Then you have a time to negotiate. Because these are expensive, septic stuff is expensive, so normally you want to make sure you have enough time in here to negotiate it so that the sellers have time to get estimates. So I would recommend at least 5 days, so maybe 7, because sometimes it does take a while to get those estimates in, and we're talking normally high dollar. When you're talking repairs on septic systems, you're talking high dollar stuff. So make sure you give yourself, don't do a 1 or 2 day negotiation period, because it just ain't gonna happen. And then your buyer election period, 1 or 2 days. If you haven't come to a meeting of the mind in 1 or 2 days, the buyer has the right to void and move on. So that's pretty much your well, water, and septic in a nutshell. Any last departing questions on anything that we covered today? I'll give you a couple seconds. If not, you guys be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.